I'm Brandon Staglin, and this is One Mind Brainwaves. Welcome and thank you for watching today. We think of childhood as a relatively carefree time when all goes well, but all too often, unfortunately, it doesn't. Young children can suffer from depression, stress, and anxiety disorders. And after a year of remote learning, isolation, fear, uncertainty, and loss, the mental health challenges that so many people are beginning to experience in this country and beyond are experienced even more prominently amongst the young. As we begin to navigate the next phase of the pandemic with a gradual return to some version of normal life, we wanted to talk with two experts in the psychology of children and adolescents and learn from them about how we can help children and adolescents with their resilience as they begin to enter this new phase of life. Later, our One Mind Cyber Guide team will give us a review of their mental health app pick of the week. And this one's actually for children. So I hope that you will enjoy that portion of our show at the end. But first,
there'll be no more crying. For you, the sun will be shining, and I feel that when I'm with you, it's alright. I know it's right. To you, I'll give a word. To you, I'll never be cold, 'cause I feel that when I'm with you, it's alright. I know it's right. And the songbirds are singing like they know the score. And I love you, I love you, I love you like never before. And I wish you all the love in the world. But most of all, I wish it from myself. And the songbirds are singing like they know the score. And I love you, I love you, I love you like never before. Like never before. Like never before. Like never before.
oh, wow, Kelly, thank you so much. What a gorgeous song. And the way you sang it, just straight to the heart. Thank you so very much.
Oh, it's really my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me here, Brandon.
You're so welcome. What a beautiful song. What a beautiful singer. Thank you very much for your performance today. And happy Mother's Day to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Hope to have you on again sometime.
I'd love it.
Sounds good. Thanks. With me now to talk about boosting resilience of children and adolescents as we enter the next chapter of the reopening, hopefully, of the pandemic and all the stresses that might bring are Dr. Stephen Adelsheim. He's the director of the Stanford Center for Youth Mental Health and Wellbeing. He's also a professor in the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences. Jeni Olsen is prevention director at Napa's Mentis Center for Mental Health Services. And that's in Northern California, where she works with teens for their mental health and well-being. And viewers, don't forget, we want to hear from you. If you have any questions you'd like to ask our guests today, please post them in the chat feature of the webcast. And if you have any thoughts or stories you'd like to share, please go ahead and do that as well. Thanks for watching and participating. Stephen, Jeni, welcome to Brainwaves.
Thanks so much for having us. It's great to be here.
Thank you, Brandon.
Absolutely. Yeah, great to see you both again. So, Steve, I'll start with you. So, depression, anxiety, substance use, even suicidal ideation, all these have multiplied manifold during the pandemic. It's an epidemic of greater and greater proportions as the stresses of the pandemic have multiplied. What do mental health issues such as depression look like in young children? And how do we recognize these things in young children? And how do we treat them?
Well, you're right, Brandon. It really has been a difficult time. And over the course of this last year, we've seen increasing visits of young people to emergency rooms for mental health related issues and many more challenges in terms of depression, anxiety in particular. When, we're trying to understand these issues and maybe see them in our children, our young people tend to express things a little bit differently than we do sometimes as adults. A lot of our younger children might express their feelings of depression or anxiety, sometimes in physical complaints. We sometimes see more headaches, more stomach aches, wanting still to withdraw a little bit more than usual, maybe not want to spend time doing other activities, sometimes more isolation. For young people, we'll often see problems sleeping, and certainly more tearfulness as well can be a sign that things are getting increasingly difficult. One of the things that we often find also with young children is increases in irritability that we may not see necessarily in older adults, but young children who might yell a little bit more or get angry a little bit more easily or sort of have a shorter fuse than usual. When we're looking at sort of recognizing these things, of course, what's important is to have our conversations with young people to try to get a sense of what's happening, to ask them about what they're worried about, to really be able to give them space to feel comfortable talking about their fears or their sadness if it's there, their worries maybe about themselves or their family members. And then in terms of treatment, we have really great treatments for young people with depression. Usually they begin with some type of therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, other ways of intervening with family supports as well, can be great ways to start providing, important treatment for our young people.
Well, it's great that there are those options available if a young person or a child is getting more severe in the challenges they're experiencing. But what you're saying resonates with me in that I remember when I was about 8, I had a bout of insomnia. It lasted several months, and I just had a lot of anxiety going on then. My parents were very willing to talk about it with me. I'll be up late at night. They come and talk with me, and that was very generous of them to do that. So I'm grateful for that. It's great when parents can do that for their kids. So, Jeni, let's turn to you. One of the reasons adults may be better equipped to weather life's challenges is they have all this experience under their belt. They've gone through hard times. They've come through the hard times. But children, and especially young adults, young people, they don't have this deep well of experience to draw from in order to weather those anxiety-provoking situations that they may deal with, or even traumatic situations. How do you build up resilience in young adults for things to come when they don't have this experience to draw perspective from?
Um, yeah, it's interesting because through my work, I've learned that resilience doesn't always come naturally to everyone, but it can be learned. So just as Dr. Adelsheim was sharing, our work at Mentis revolves around having open and honest conversations with our youth. We create safe spaces for young people to talk about their mental health with trusted peers and adults who listen. They learn to work through and process their fears so they don't become debilitating. Sometimes professional therapy is needed and necessary to get through these difficult times, especially this past year. We offer that in our continuum of care as well. One of the things that we teach our young people is that it's okay to not be okay sometimes. I think that all too often, especially with social media, it looks like everyone has it all together. And when teens and young people, young adults realize that being sad or anxious is part of normal mental health, they don't have the added stress of feeling like they should have it all together all the time. So it's important that they learn that they can take breaks, they can disconnect sometimes. Even before the pandemic, our young people feel so much pressure to succeed. So letting teens fall or sometimes not do well actually builds resilience, because strength comes from struggle. We encourage self-care, teaching our young people how to build healthy habits like taking breaks, spending time in nature, listening to music, chilling out with a book or a movie, and snacks, which is really important for our work with young people. Always have food and snacks. We actually help teens build their own wellness toolkit by asking questions like, what is it that makes you feel good or safe or calm? And those answers become their personal self-care toolkit. And while it's really important to teach that disconnection, it's also important to teach and facilitate connection for young people, helping them feel more connected to their peers, to trusted adults, to community, to something bigger than themselves, like a cause or with a group of like-minded peers. Knowing that they are not alone is really important for young people. Getting involved in helping them get involved in volunteer projects or civic engagement can give them hope and a sense of meaning and purpose, because our youth really need to believe that they can make a difference and they can make change in their lives and in their communities. And then I think lastly, it's really important to help our young people understand how to take things one day at a time, doing the next thing they need to do, focusing on what they can control and trying to let go of what they can't control. For instance, in our conversations, our young people have shared with us that they can't control the pandemic, but they can control keeping themselves safe by wearing masks and social distancing. So we teach healthy habits and coping strategies for managing stress, which build resilience. And then we also teach young people that it's important to seek professional help when they need it.
That's also, it's comprehensively thought out and presented to young people, in a way that I think is personalized for each one, it sounds like. But there's so many different tools that you offer for young people to practice and to connect with each other, and then to get help with, if they need that. That's phenomenal. It sounds like you've learned an awful lot in your work with young people. There is one question I wanted to ask you that just kind of off the cuff here, but because we have talked about this before, but how did you start to learn about all these wonderful ways to help young people with their mental health, and what inspired you to do so?
I asked questions and I listened. It's as simple as that. I struggled when I was a teen, and I share that with my teens, but I also share that I don't know what it's like to be a teen today. I have no idea. So I asked them, what are the sources of your stress and anxiety and depression and struggles? And what do you need from the adults in your life? What do you need us to create for you to help you through this time? What can we do for you? And I just continue. That's been the basis of our work since day one. And I continue to ask questions and to listen to what they're sharing with me. We have a really active and diverse teen council, which includes high schoolers from all our local high schools and our community college. And they're the ones that are doing the boots on the ground work. They're sharing what they need. They're listening to their peers. They're facilitating these peer-led conversations. And through what comes from these conversations that's how we design our programs, based on what they're asking for. That's the most important part of our work.
Brilliant, straight from the horse's mouth, as they say, or from
Right.
yeah, exactly what they need, because that's what they say they need. That's fantastic. And Steve, does this resonate with you in the programs that you work with kids in? Do are you able to kind of craft their personalized treatment plan based on how they explain their personal needs and so forth?
Well, I think Jeni gave really wonderful answers to your questions, and really, brought home not only sort of ways of building support for young people during this time and really listening to their voices, but really, raising some of the key issues for young people to address, and some of the ways we, as older adults, really need to do a better job of listening to the guidance of our young people. And I think what's important to remember as we talk about these issues is, people talk about the period from 12 to 25 as the second 0 to 3, as the time when our brains, again, are going through a whole other period of adaptation to change. Our brains are flexible and they're still going through transitions, and we're learning how to use our frontal lobes, how to deal with impulsive behaviors and these kinds of issues. As we have done work sort of similar to Jeni's, one of the things that we've seen is really important is that as much as, half of all mental health issues start by the age of 14, we really don't have places for young people like Jeni has been able to develop to get the support they need early, or when they're starting to wonder if they may have a mental health challenge of some type. And there really aren't safe and comfortable places for young people to get help. So part of the work we've been doing, similar to Jeni's, has been working to create those kinds of models. And in California, we're calling these models Alcove, and they're based on an international effort to create comfortable places for young people to come in for early mental health care, for primary care, for support for early addiction, peer support, and many of the kinds of supports that Jeni's also talking about. And so one of the important pieces that she raises is we've had very active youth advisory groups that have been guiding the development of these sites. And the youth voice during this time has been particularly critical. And the young people that Jeni talks with, we've been hearing young people really raising their sense of loss during this time and the challenges they've been facing, but also their abilities to learn great self-care skills and learn alternative ways of coping that are really going to serve them for a very, very long time. Many of them have made critical, expanded contributions in their own homes as there have been stresses at home or losses at home or economic or other challenges. And our young people really have stepped up to be of support, not always in easy ways. But, I think our youth are really guiding us in terms of what they need and are taking on additional support at home and with each other. And frankly, it's been wonderful to see the resilience that Jeni was referencing as well in our youth really everywhere.
It's so inspiring to hear. And it's great to hear that young people are adapting to these situations in very resilient ways. So Jeni, speaking of resilience, for teens who may be anxious about returning to more normal activities after this long period of isolation, as Steve was referring to a moment ago, there may be periods of stress in going back to school, that kind of thing. How do you help young people develop a plan to keep their resilience strong during this uncertain period?
Yeah, our teens are calling it reentry anxiety. And it's been a big part of our conversations over the past few months. I think that recognizing and talking about this specific type of anxiety is the first step, helping teens understand that they are not alone, that many of their peers are feeling the same thing, breaking down this new change in routine into simple, small steps in order to help them feel successful during the transition is really important. It's been interesting because some of our teens are sharing that they are excited to see friends that they've missed this past year. And some have actually shared that they have reassessed their friend group or their social structure and realize that they may not identify or relate to the people that they used to hang out with. They've had so much time alone this past year to figure out who they are and how they want to show up in their world that they're being a little more picky about who they spend their time with. So For teens that still don't feel safe around being around people, we talk about taking steps for staying safe. We help teens really figure out who their support system is, who's on their team. We identify who in their life helps them feel safe and supported, whether it's adults, it could be a parent, a mentor, a teacher, a coach, a pastor, a therapist, obviously, their friends who they feel that they can really trust and tell anything to. So really sometimes helping our young people define the list of who their people are, who their support team is, confirms that they have people they can trust and who can help them through transitions. So really helping them feel that they're not alone can make all the difference. And again, connecting them to support, including, our Mentis therapists that are at their school sites, and crisis support that's both local and global for those who may need it is really important. Just really helping our teens understand that there are people to help them through this transition and talking about it along the way and through the process of transitioning.
Wow, that must really help them to feel more secure knowing that there is that help available and they have each other. But it was interesting to hear about how you're saying how some teens are reevaluating their friend group. I guess the pandemic has not been all a negative experience for so many. It can be built, the opportunity to build back better, to use expressions been used, but to reevaluate your life in personal ways, and teens are taking advantage of that, which is great to hear.
Yeah.
So Steve, what about younger children who are now used to spending more time at home with their family and their pets and their parents? And they're how are they coping when parents are starting to go back to work again and spend more time outside the home? And how do you help them cope?
Well, Brandon, I guess I think about this in similar ways to some of what Jeni was describing for, the other teens. That, what seems really important, one, is to help our children prepare for the return, to be able to listen to them, to talk through what their fears and concerns are, to get a sense of maybe, their comfort levels with maybe having their parents going back to work, having them go back to school. What's exciting about that for them and what might be frightening. I think it's really important that we normalize the concerns that our children have and be able to acknowledge that we're all going through our own stresses during this transition. And I think for parents to be able to talk about what it's like for them, for some who have maybe been at home but are now going back into, an office or some other setting, to talk about what that transition is like as a parent and the concerns that come up, so that our children realize that we're all going through this together and we're all looking at facing these different kinds of challenges. I think it's also really important to plan for our children that, there will still be sort of structured time together, and ensuring that, their parents aren't going to disappear and that time is there. And also, I think maybe preparing for the possibility of being back with friends at school by maybe building some of those connections earlier on, whether it's through even a Zoom contact or talking together through the phone, or having some ways, where people are starting to get ready to socialize again and do some of that visiting to maybe get excited about going back to school as well. And then I think it's important, that parents really plan on having ways of doing structured check-ins with their children when they're back in a work situation, finding ways to work with the school to be able to still check in with their child, over time as well. And maybe some of those hybrid school plans will also really help with the transition for some families too.
Wow. It sounds like there's a lot of ways that parents can help their kids understand they're still connected with them, even when they're not necessarily physically present with them.
Absolutely.
And these kind of a new frontier, it seems like, with the reopening of the pandemic starting to happen. Has there ever been any parallels to this in your past experience in terms of situations?
Well, I think for me, I see it a lot, maybe more with individual young people, who have had anxiety around school or stress around those situations. But in terms of reopening schools in this way, I think a lot of concerns that people have about the education that's been missed, and for many families, the grief and loss, that's really come over the course of the last year. It really seems like an unprecedented time. And,
Yeah,
we as a world are really going through still these dramatic changes together.
indeed, indeed. We're all in this together. We're talking about boosting children's resilience as we enter the next chapter of life with Dr. Stephen Adelsheim, who is director of the Stanford Center for Youth Mental Health and Wellbeing in the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences, and Jeni Olsen, who is prevention director for Mentis Napa Center for Mental Health Services. Viewers, again, thank you for watching. If you have any questions or comments you'd like to post in the chat feature of our webcast today, please do so. We'd love to hear from you. Also, if you have anything you'd like to, if you believe anything that you're learning today from this webcast is worth sharing with others that you know, please share this webcast with them because it could be very helpful for them to hear. Also, yeah, so thank you again for watching and participating. Let's get back to the interviews. Jeni, a big part of your work at Mentis involves school-based programs to help teens experience feelings of sadness and hopelessness, which have been growing, of course, during the pandemic. And even before the pandemic, they were a major issue. How are programs being modified to provide extra support now that students may be dealing with a wider range of issues like trauma of going through the pandemic and going back to school in these school programs?
So, this year, we have been offering all our programs on Zoom, and we've been able to reach a lot more middle and high schoolers this year than we ever have in the past. We used to offer wellness cafes. I'll describe what those are in a minute, after school or during access period for students where they could choose to come. This year, teachers have been really understanding the need and the need for mental health and wellness support for their students. So they've been inviting us into their classrooms. So we're able to deliver our programs through PE classes or AVID classes or, different ways where we can work with large groups of students together. And as Dr. Adelsheim shared, normalizing and validating our young people's feelings and experiences is the most important thing we can be doing to support them right now. So our wellness cafes are discussion groups that open up the conversations about students' mental health challenges. We ask what they need to feel more supported. We teach coping tools for managing stress and anxiety, and we provide connection to resources and supports, including our peer-led prevention work in the community and school-based therapy with our Mentis clinicians. We have therapists at all of our school district, middle and high schools that offer therapy for free for those who need it. We also offer a curriculum called Resilience for Youth, which is a 6-week evidence-based training that teaches students the critical social emotional skills and helps them foster resiliency. We offer QPR suicide prevention trainings, which has been crucial this past year. QPR is a curriculum that teaches young people and adults how to recognize the signs of a suicide or mental health crisis and how to question, persuade, and refer someone to help. And we've trained 300 young people this year and 60 staff in our school district with QPR. And then something really exciting that we added this year it's called Teen Happy Hours. We realized that early on in the pandemic that one of the hardest aspects of this social distancing for our young people has been the isolation. So we've been gathering every week on Zoom, once a week during the evening, open to everyone in the community, all teens, and having, different activities related to wellness. So we do art projects, we play games, we always have conversation flowing about, check-ins about mental health. We keep it light, so it's just really fun. It's all about being social, but in a wellness, with a wellness theme. We also bring in yoga and mindfulness teachers, as well as professionals and experts to host workshops that teach about mental health, healthy relationships, LGBTQ inclusion, and other topics that are really relevant to our young people today. One of our most popular workshops is called Ask a Therapist, where we bring in our Mentis therapists and they host an hour where the teens can just ask them questions, and they teach anxiety reduction tools. They teach about how to support friends who are struggling. They teach about self-care. And our teens have really been responding to that. So we really are committed to collaboration with our partners, local school districts, our partner agencies that provide tools and resources that we don't necessarily provide, but we all together are providing this comprehensive network of support for our young people.
Wow, that's phenomenal. I love the happy hours that you talked about. It sounds like a great, resource for helping young people not only learn about mental health, but have fun together and with your team. And that must be a bonding experience, right?
Absolutely. It really is. And we've learned, it was kind of clunky at first figuring out how to connect on social media, on Zoom, but we've learned how, and we make it fun. And we've tried different things and that didn't work. And we just keep trying. And we ask our youth, like our teen council, I always ask them afterwards, was that weird or was it fun? They give truthful answers. It was a little bit weird, this part when you were playing music and then we couldn't talk. So let's try this instead. And so they've really helped sort of design what these happy hours look like so that they're successful.
That's so cool. And I imagine, that experience that helps not only them have fun, but improve their resilience and mental health down the line, because they have those bonds they build during that experience. Huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Steve, I wonder if you're planning to implement any similar things in the ALCO program, or maybe you're taking notes as things you could implement, if not yet. Go ahead.
I think what Jeni's been describing is wonderful. And part of what I think, as we work with our youth advisory groups, I think one of the things that really has been a challenge for our young people is sort of, as they've been out of school, they're not like running into their friends in the hallway or being able to just sort of meet them out in the community. And that opportunity for just sort of spontaneous interaction and communication is sort of lost. And so the connections have to be, much more intentional than they used to be in terms of social connections. And I think for some young people, there's a hesitation to do that. And I think as Jeni's been describing, even on Zoom, creating spaces for that spontaneous communication to happen and spontaneous activities connection has been great. We too, with our youth advisors, have been trying to create some of these similar experiences to come together using art and other activities to build connection, to find ways to talk about how things have been feeling. And frankly, our young people have been doing actually a lot of public speaking, actually, and doing a lot of work to share with other families and other young people some guidance on how to address these issues. They've been involved in different town halls, different opportunities through media like this to be able to share their experiences and guide other peers. And I think what Jeni's been doing is absolutely incredible. And I think a lot of our work, has generally paralleled some of her efforts, but I'm excited for us to be able to follow up and connect and, take some of her strategies to build them out as we continue to expand our ALCOVE efforts, build the youth advisory groups for the other programs across the state.
Well, happy I connect you two on this. Jeni, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, first of all, I'm really excited about connecting and even getting some of our young people together to connect and learn from each other and inspire each other. We also have been offering opportunities for webinars, putting our teens on panels to speak about what they're going through. We had an event recently called Dear Napa, What Your Teens Want You to Know. And it was them sharing about their mental health, identity and intersectionality, and relationships. And they really opened up in this safe space and shared with our adults what they needed. And they shared things some of them weren't able to share with their own parents, but they're able to share it to a bigger audience because our teens need to be able to share. They need some new people. They need people to listen to them that aren't necessarily their parents. As you know, a normal part of development during the teen years is pulling away from parents, gaining that independence. So really connecting them with opportunities to share to other adults is so valuable and important. And it's exciting to hear that you've been doing the same thing.
Wow.
Well, and it reminds me, Brandon, as you know, I've been involved in work with young people at clinical risk for early psychosis issues and things like that as well. And, one of the things that's been sort of wonderful for me to be part of these multifamily group processes and kind of like what Jeni's describing is that often, we as adults don't necessarily want to hear what our children are trying to tell us about what needs to happen, but we're open to hearing it from other kids and their friends in a way we sometimes won't hear it, and vice versa. As children, we may not want to get that guidance from our own parent. But if there's another adult, maybe sometimes we're often more willing to listen. I think what Jeni's describing about, that kind of sharing and guidance that the young people have been providing is really helpful and resonates with that cross-generational communication for lots of families.
You two are tapping some really powerful, insights and helping young people and their older counterparts to connect with each other and improve each other's mental health overall. That's fantastic to hear. In terms of Steve, in terms of when we're talking with families about how to help their young people, what can employers do? Many parents are, of course, working, and what can their employers do to support parents and families who want to lessen the trauma that their children are experiencing due to the pandemic? How can the employer be of help to families for their children?
Well, one of the things employers could maybe do is have them listen to a webinar like this to be able to really help their employees sort of understand the experiences of their children as they're moving back into their work, and to really understand some of the mental health challenges that their children are facing, and finding a way to educate them about that is important. I think allowing parents some flexibility as they're returning to work to be able to take more breaks, check on their kids, understand that parents are going to be very concerned and worried about how their children are doing, and maybe also not overwhelm, their parents as employees in terms of adding too many brand new and heavy tasks or new things right away to their workload, so that people have a chance to adjust to getting back into the work environment. And I think as employers really are able to then normalize, also, just like we're talking about for their kids, normalize for their employees, that they understand that this is a challenging and hard time and a difficult transition, and predict some of those difficulties for their employees, and maybe share some strategies for helping to address them. I think all of those, become important ways of supporting, our employees as they're getting ready to separate on their own as well from their children, who they're also still going to be very concerned and worried about as well.
Yeah, those are important tactics to put into play, and so, communication, of course, is a huge part of that as well, as we've been talking about. And speaking of communication, Jeni, studies have shown that simply asking if someone is okay, or if they're experiencing thoughts of harming themselves or suicide, can actually help save thousands of lives. What role do peers have with each other in helping build individual and collective resilience? We talked a bit about that, but can you go a bit deeper into that, please?
Absolutely. We've seen this in our work firsthand. As I mentioned earlier, we teach an evidence-based suicide prevention training called QPR. And the basis for this training is teaching participants to learn how to ask the question, are you thinking about suicide? And then following up with steps to keep someone from self-harm. Early on in our work, we recognize that young people are often the first responders to their friends in crisis. So a teen may reach out to a best friend and confide in somebody they know, that's their age, before they'll reach out or talk to an adult. So it's really important for us to teach these tools to our teens, to our youth. They are in a much better position to recognize when someone is struggling. And this past year, a lot of signs and clues have been displayed on social media because of the social distance and social isolation. So it's especially important to teach our young people to watch for these signs that somebody may be at risk for suicide or in a mental health crisis on social media. Last fall, we had a QPR training for about 25 teens and young adults. And one of the participants a couple days later shared with me that she saved her friend's life later on that same night after the training because of the tools that she learned in our training. So we have just been offering QPR training to as many young people and adults as we can in the community, because asking someone about suicide will often be met with relief, because that person that's being asked will know that they're not alone, that somebody actually cares. And we teach the tools for helping that person through their crisis and to get the support they need. It really, truly saves lives.
it's so wonderful that you offer that resource, that service for young people to learn how to ask others if they're going through a hard time, because that can be often as hard as speaking up yourself about yourself having a hard time. How do you start a conversation so that you give those resources and give people the tools to help each other that way? Fantastic.
Right.
Yeah.
And Steve, speaking of the suicidal ideation that many young people have experienced during the pandemic and even before the pandemic, it's the second leading cause of death among young people aged 10 to 24. Sadly, a lot of this stems from trauma. What are some of the long-range implications for mental health? Will this year be a year of trauma that marks the generation that is emerging from the pandemic, or potentially could it be a year in which we've, as Jeni was talking about earlier, we're able to kind of reset and use the plasticity that young people have to kind of be flexible and adapt to a new era?
Well, Brandon, I end up thinking maybe it's going to be a little bit of both. I mean, we haven't had anything like this for 100 years in this country, and I think it's a challenge that as we start to come out of it, it's been traumatic for everyone involved. I think our families have been under tremendous stress, multiple challenges, emotionally, financially, grief-wise as well. At the same time, I think, as Jeni's been describing with her young people, we've all had to learn different kinds of survival skills in a situation most of us never even dreamed possible in terms of our lives. And I think as much as people have worked hard to maintain social distance, I think many of us have become closer as we have sort of gone through these experiences together. I think people have learned more coping skills than they expected to need to know, whether it's learning how to be alone, or as Jeni recommended or suggested from her young people, reevaluating their friendships and what's important to all of us. I think people have learned to often value our families in really different ways and their connections to people who are important, even folks, that we've reached out to from our childhoods or other parts of our lives, and really looking at the long range connections that we each have had. And I think we have a new appreciation of each other, the gifts we bring to each other in a way that I think is hopeful. So as much as it's been a huge challenge, I know that many people are excited and hopeful of this time. And I think we have the resilience to move forward together. So I think we've got great potential to build on this experience in a positive way.
Yeah, that really resonates with me too. I've had the opportunity to spend more time talking with my close friends over the pandemic than I ever had before. We make it an intent to reach out to each other, to have those Zoom conversations, and closer with my family too. Spend a lot of quality time with them, and also my niece and nephew, who are just young and 3 and 5 and getting bigger. And so that's such quality, valuable time to have. And the pandemic has enabled me to be there closer with them, which is wonderful. So now we come to the fun part of the show. We like to wrap the show with a lightning round, which is 5 rapid fire questions for each of you to be answered in 30 seconds or less total. Okay. One person at a time. We'll go through this for Steve's questions first and circle around back for Jeni's answers. How does that sound to you guys?
All right.
All right, Steve, ready? All right, first answer, best answer, here we go. What type of music, literature, or art do you turn to when you're feeling down?
I would say I'm listening to a lot of Philip Glass these days, ambient music, reading a lot of novels when I get the chance to do that.
Oh, that's so nice. What helps the most with your well-being? A person, dog, cat, or other animal?
I think my family that's at home has been great, but we have Scooter and Nellie, our dogs, and they've been a real comfort as well, I have to say.
Wonderful. What is a hobby or activity for all ages that helps you feel calm?
So I've been trying to meditate every day for the last 5 or 6 months, and that's been really helpful, and doing a lot of walking. I'm finding that walking is something that's feeling really good right now.
Fantastic. It's been a year of heroes. Who are your heroes and why?
I think the young people we've been working with have been heroic in terms of facing the challenges that they have and giving us really good guidance. I think my family as well. You know, my father was sitting alone in an apartment for almost a year and has now moved into a place where he has a social life again, and that's been great. And my family's been putting up with me at home for quite a while, so I think they're heroes for doing that. And I've grown my hair, and they've put up with that too. So, you know, I think there are a lot of heroes in my life right now.
Oh, that's so sweet. And what gives you hope?
What gives me hope is the young people we've been working with, I think, as well. And I've really been struck by their wisdom and guidance during this really hard time, and their voice, and knowing that this is the next generation that's going to be guiding us out of this really difficult experience. And I think they really understand a lot, and I'm excited to have them guide us into this sort of next round of mental health support for our world.
That is so hopeful. Thank you for sharing that. Jeni, your turn.
Okay, I'm
What-
ready.
Okay.
I had a little time to think about this, listening to
Yeah,
Steve.
Okay, great. What type of music, literature, or art do you turn to when you're feeling down?
So this is going to sound really weird, but I love like heavy metal, hard rock, punk rock music. The harder and louder, the better, because it helps me get out of my head. I can't think of anything else when the music is so loud. And that's honestly, it's meditative for me.
Fantastic. Awesome. Yeah. Rock on. Which helps the most? Yeah. Which helps the most with your well-being? A person, dog, cat, or other animal?
So you saw my dog before we started recording. I just got her, didn't buy her. I rescued her when she was 10 months old. So I've just had her for a few months. She's a German Shepherd Husky mix. And I didn't know what I was missing. I've had cats, I've had dogs in the past, but she has completed my life this past year. She's really helped me with my self-care because I have to get out every day and walk her.
I totally get it.
Yeah.
What is a hobby or activity for all ages that helps you to feel calm?
Hiking. I'm a big hiker. And if I can't get out on the trail every day, I at least go outside and put my feet in the grass. It grounds me and helps me feel connected to this earth.
So important. Yeah. And this has been a year of heroes. Who are some of your heroes and why?
I will have to say my two sons, Levi and Max, they're 21 and 23, and they are who's inspired me to get into this work in the first place. They both had their own mental health challenges and they've overcome, and they're fully like grown, productive adults. And I just am so inspired by them every single day. They are my true heroes.
Oh, that's wonderful. And then finally, what gives you hope?
I'm going to copy Steve and say the same thing. Our young people, they are so resilient, and their fresh and unique perspectives on the world and changing the world, making it better, inspire me. They have this passion and drive for inclusiveness and for creating a better, safer, kinder world for everyone, regardless. And they inspire me. They drive me to continue doing this work every day.
You're so lucky to get to work with such wonderful kids.
I know.
Yeah. And to have such wonderful kids in your family. I want to say happy Mother's Day. Mother's Day is coming up.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Hope you have a great Mother's Day with your family.
Thank you, Brandon.
Yeah. So thank you both, Jeni and Steve. And viewers, thank you too for watching and participating. Please stick around for a few minutes. We're going to have a wonderful review from our One Mind Cyber Guide team about a laugh and learn app for children with exercises to encourage problem solving and planning and self-control. Take it away, One Mind Cyber Guide team.
Hi there, I'm Martha Neary, and I'm the project manager of One Mind Cyber Guide. You probably already use your phone for many things throughout the day, but did you know that there are lots of apps out there to help you manage your mental health and well-being? There are thousands of mental health apps available for download today. With so many to choose from, it can be hard to separate the good from the bad. That's where One Mind Cyber Guide can help. At One Mind Cyber Guide, we review apps on 3 different metrics: credibility, user experience, and transparency. We've reviewed over 200 products, and all of these reviews are available for free on our app guide at onemindcyberguide.org.
Hi, I'm Stephen Schuler, and I'm the Executive Director of One Mind Cyber Guide. I'm a clinical psychologist and mental health service researcher. and my research focuses on the use of technology to increase access to mental health care. The work we do at One Mind Cyber Guide is important because there's a need for objective third-party reviews of mental health apps and rigorous evaluation of their evidence base.
This week, we're looking at Breathe, Think, Do with Sesame. This interactive game is designed for parents and caregivers to use with children to help them learn skills like problem solving, self-control, and planning. Here's a look at what the app is like.
This monster is frowning, and his shoulders are all scrunched up. He's feeling frustrated because he tried and tried to put on his shoes, but he just couldn't do it. Tap on the monster's belly to help him put his hands on it. Tap slowly on his belly. Look! The monster is calming down! Yes! He looks much calmer. Great job! You helped the monster take 3 slow breaths to calm down. Now, he's ready to think about a plan for how to get his shoes on. Pop the bubbles to tell the monster helpful things, and think of some plans. Think, think, think! Keep thinking of a plan. You're almost there. Look, the monster has an idea. Watch how his sister puts on her shoes so he can remember how to do it himself.
On our app guide, Breathe, Think, Do with Sesame has a score of 1.67 out of 5 for credibility and 4.11 out of 5 for user experience.
We look forward to seeing you next week for another app review.
Thanks, Cyber Guide team. And thank you, Steve. Thank you, Jeni, for sharing your experiences, your wisdom, your perspective with us today. It's been so valuable to hear. Thank you.
Thank you.
And viewers, thank you too for watching and participating. If you have any questions, you may post additional questions at onemind.org/brainwaves and find all of our past episodes there. Feel free to check that out. Looking forward to seeing you next week. Have a great day. Thanks. Bye-bye.
You're feeling anxious, afraid, alone.
I haven't been able to see my family or my friends.
Families that struggled to find mental health care before find it even harder now.
I feel a lot of guilt in not being with my family.
Are there solutions? Visit onemind.org, seeking the answers, bringing help to the front lines, accelerating brain health for all. Help us fund new treatments at onemind.org.